Okay, before I start with this next chapter, I just want any of you who have actually played the original 8-bit Metal Gear, to listen closely and see if you can point out what happens, anything that happens during this chapter that might not exactly be what happens, how you get past certain obstacles in the game itself. The deadly roller came thundering closer. The floor tilted crazily. Solid Snake staggered and found it impossible to stay on his feet. The pin was moving more rapidly, gaining momentum with every second that passed. It was moving a lot faster than Hallie, and soon it would be on top of him. Solid Snake thought fast. Crouching down to the floor, Hallie waited and watched as the pin got closer. At the precise moment that it reached him, Solid Snake gave a mighty leap upward and threw himself over the pin, rolling clear on the opposite side. The pin thundered onward, smashing into the far wall. The floor, whose tilt was electronically clued into the rolling of the steel monster, became level again. As the floor straightened out, Hallie scrambled to his feet, shaky but unhurt. Before he could catch his breath, 3 terrorist guards came rushing out of concealment, weapons drawn. Solid Snake still had no ammunition for his handgun, and the mines were useless in this situation. All he could do was run. He was near the door, so he raced for it on the double. Without looking back, he pulled it shut behind him, using keycard 1 to lock it. The guards were shut inside. Without delay, Solid Snake used his keycard on the next room, and the door swung open. Cautiously, he entered. The room at first appeared to be completely empty. No guards, no lethal devices. In the center of the floor stood only a table, with a computer and some field rations on it. Were the rations poisoned? Hallie hoped not, because he knew he'd have to take the chance anyway. Chuck's words came back to him. You've got to have plenty of rations if you want to make it through the heat panels. Maybe Chuck hadn't been delirious after all. Solid Snake picked up the rations and sniffed at them. They smelled terrible. But all field rations smelled terrible. Justin Hallie ate some and pocketed the rest. Then he turned his attention to the computer on the table. It sat there, switched off, silently mocking and defying him. What was its purpose? What information did it hold? Solid Snake reached across the table and turned the computer on. At once the screen lit up and showed an enemy terrorist's face. It was the face of Colonel Vermin Katafi. Before Hallie had time to think, the face on the computer screen began to decompose right before his eyes. The picture turned into blocks, and the blocks were quickly scrambled until the face was an unrecognizable jumble. A small clock appeared on the screen, ticking the seconds down from 20 to 19, 18. Hallie realized that this was a crucial identification test. The computer thought he was a terrorist and was putting him through a special run to make certain of his identity. Each person using this computer only had 20 seconds to unscramble the face. The guards were trained in this exercise, but Hallie was not. Quickly, Solid Snake began to strike the keys almost at random, while the seconds ticked down one by one. On the screen, a couple of pieces fell into place, and Hallie worked faster, but at the same time with more focus. The trick was to pay as little attention as possible to the clock counting down from 12 to 11 to 10, 9. Just get the job done. 5, 4. Hallie had only 3 pieces of face left to go, but one piece he'd unscrambled before was in the wrong place, was blocking the right place. Deep breath. Do it. Just do it. 3, 2. The final piece clicked into place a nanosecond before the countdown stopped. There on the screen, the terrorist's face had been reassembled. Solid Snake heard a click. From a slot in the side of the computer came a small sound, and a keycard slipped out. His reward for getting it right? A key card. The computer had fallen for his trick. He compared it to the first key card he had found and noticed that there was a pattern to the bumps on the card. With 2 cards in hand, it was easy to see that the pattern was a numbering system. This was card 2. The bumps were carefully laid out in sections. He could tell that there were 8 cards in all. Now he had more rations and another precious key card. The next room couldn't be opened with key card 1, but the door did open at the press of key card 2. Inside was another bound Snake Man prisoner, Jim Tibbet. Solid Snake, thank God you're here. I'd just about given up hope. I have a message from you, for you, from Diana. She said, Gray Fox infiltrated the enemy several days ago. They captured him, but he is alive. Gray Fox was the squad leader of the Snake Men. Could Justin Halley rely on the truth of that message? How could Diana have gotten through to Jim? And when? Before he was captured? Could he trust Tibbert? Was this only some kind of lying trick to divert Solid Snake from his main objective, Metal Gear? Halley looked deep into Snake Man Jim's eyes, searching for the truth. It seemed to him that he saw it there. But if he were wrong, if Jim Tibbet was lying and Halley believed him, this mistake could easily prove fatal. Yet he really wanted to believe that Gray Fox was still alive. What should he decide? Solid Snake was torn between his desire to set his friends free and get them to safety, and his mission to find Metal Gear wherever and whatever it was and destroy it. It was a hard choice, but the mission came above everything. Those were his orders, and he was here in Outer Heaven to obey him. If on the way he found Gray Fox alive, that would be the icing on the cake. But he couldn't stop to look for him. Yet he resolved in his heart to keep his eyes open for Gray Fox, and to question every prisoner he set free about the squad leader. If anybody could help him on this mission, it was Gray Fox. I'll come back for you as soon as I can, Halley promised Tibbet. Hang in there, Jim. Rest up. The door's unlocked now, so be careful. I will, Jim replied, weakly shaking Justin's hand. You be careful, too. In the next room, opened by key card 2, Halley was hit by odorless poison gas as soon as the door opened. He felt his lungs choking with pain. He felt, with only seconds to spare, he got his gas mask on. Something caught his eye, even through the gas. Taped to the baseboard on the far wall were 3 clips of ammunition for the Beretta. Bullets! Now he felt like a combat Marine again. Now Solid Snake was armed. In the same room, he found a small package containing the silencer for the Beretta. That made Solid Snake grin, and he screwed the silencer onto the end of the barrel. The next space he entered was a small armory, a supplementary weapons stash. On a high shelf, Justin Halley located a grenade launcher and a cache of grenades. This find slowed him down somewhat, but it was too important to leave behind. Solid Snake strapped the grenade launcher on his back and slung a heavy bandolier of grenades over his chest. Now he looked like a fighting man. Hello? Whispered Halley urgently into his compass. Hello? Control, do you copy? Was there anybody on his side listening to him, monitoring his whereabouts? Halley didn't know. Doggedly, Solid Snake kept moving forward from one room to another. He hoped to find Gray Fox, but his first priority was to locate a transceiver radio as soon as he could. Time was crunching Justin Halley. He needed to receive his radio message from Control to guide him further into the depths of Outer Heaven. And he had to have those radio transmissions soon. Halley was feeling isolated, as though he'd been completely cut off from Foxhound Command. He didn't even know if his homing device, the compass, was operational. Was the base receiving him? Were they tracking him? Did they even know he was still alive? Taking the elevator down to the first floor, Solid Snake made up his mind to try keycard 2 to open those locked doors that hadn't responded to him when he only had keycard 1. To locate Metal Gear, he would need a lot more clues. Hallie emerged from the elevator into a part of the level that was used as a storehouse. It was piled high with evenly stacked rows of heavy wooden crates, each one large enough to house a small truck or an all-terrain vehicle. Making his way through the stacked-up wooden crates, which were painted with the Outer Heaven insignia, Justin Hallie narrowly avoided a deadly trapdoor between the two of them. But as he did, a nail protruding from one of the crates caught his sleeve and yanked at his arm. The compass went flying out of Solid Snake's hand, down into the well of the trapdoor and out of sight. Solid Snake was stunned. He believed the compass to be his actual homing device, sending out a signal that only Foxhound Command could receive. He didn't know that the real homing device was sewn into the sleeve of his camouflage suit. Now Justin thought the loss of the compass had cut him off totally from Foxhound Command. He'd have to act completely on his own, without any thought of backup help from the U.S. Marines or Commander South. But perhaps, when he found the radio, Diana might be able to guide him. Solid Snake's search for the radio doubled in intensity, and there were still more Snake Men to set free. Some of them might have important clues for him. Hallie moved swiftly, silently, cautiously from room to room. In one of the keycard one rooms, a prisoner named Frank Witkowski gave Hallie an important clue. Gray Fox is locked up in a hidden solitary cell room. The best way to get to the hidden cell? Let the enemy capture you on purpose. Let the terrorists capture him. Actually surrender to the enemy in order to infiltrate more deeply? It might be a workable plan. Could this guy Witkowski be lying to trick him? Hallie freed the prisoner and, thinking hard, set off again by himself. Looking through a door, Hallie spotted 3 trucks parked in a row near the outside wall. Solid Snake had been lucky with trucks so far, locating rations, weapons, and necessary equipment in them. Could he get lucky again? Yes! In one of the trucks was an Ingram Mac 2 submachine gun with a full clip. With the Beretta, and now the lightweight rapid-firing automatic Mac 2, not to mention the grenade launcher, the grenades, and the anti-tank missiles, Solid Snake was becoming a walking arsenal, ready for any fight. But it was also a pretty heavy load for one fighting man to carry. Maybe he'd make better time if he didn't have to walk or run everywhere. For example, if he had wheels. Hallie decided to commandeer one of the trucks. It was at that very moment that Justin Hallie's luck ran out. As he climbed out into the cab of the truck, a squad of terrorists appeared out of nowhere. Suddenly, Solid Snake was surrounded on all sides. There were guards everywhere, each man with an automatic weapon aimed straight at his chest. There were no options left. There was nothing to do but surrender. Hallie put his hands up and allowed the terrorists to take him quietly. Captured. Solid Snake was a prisoner. Did this mean that his mission was at an end? A failure? Had he let the Corps down? Betrayed the Snakeman Squad, Commander South, his country, and the free world? Hallie suddenly recalled the words of Frank Witkowski, the last prisoner he'd freed. The best way to get to the hidden cell is to let the enemy capture you on purpose. Could that Snake Man be right? Solid Snake was about to find out. Roughly, the guards stripped Hallie of his bandolier of grenades, the gas mask, the Beretta, the Mac 2, The anti-tank mines, the ammo, the grenade launcher, the binoculars, the rations. They confiscated all of Solid Snake's weapons and equipment, or at least they thought they did. But there was one crucial exception. Katafi's men missed something. Because the terrorists could not conceive of Solid Snake having key cards in his possession, because they believed that he brought his own weapons into Outer Heaven with him, and because the key cards were no larger and thicker than an American Express card, the guards didn't find them when they frisked him for more weapons. The key cards were still safe, deep down in the pocket of Solid Snake's camos. Now that he was a prisoner, what were the odds against his meeting Gray Fox? Witkowski had told him that the terrorists had the squad leader hidden away in somewhere in solitary confinement. The guards spun Justin Halley around, and a black, greasy blindfold was tied tightly around his eyes. He could see nothing. Prodding Solid Snake along painfully with their weapons, they marched him, stumbling, inside a building and down a long corridor. They turned so many corners that Halley couldn't hold on to his sense of orientation. He had no idea where they were taking him. At last, they reached a stopping point. The terrorists yanked cruelly at Solid Snake's arms to get him to stop. Justin Halley heard a cell door open, and he was pushed roughly inside, falling to the hard stone floor. The triumphant and mocking way the guards were laughing and sneering at him told Halley plainly that his interrogation would be next, and very soon. The guards didn't even bother to tie Justin up. Another indication that they expected to be back for him within the hour. The door clanged shut. Reaching behind him, Solid Snake struggled with the thick knot of his blindfold until he got it off. The cell was so dimly lit that it was hard to make out anything except shadows. But in a few seconds, Halley's eyes had adjusted to the lack of light, and he looked around him. There was a chair in the corner, in which was tied a single prisoner, barely conscious. He was bound and gagged. Justin Halley went to the prisoner. He removed the gag and untied the ropes that were cutting sharply into the man's wrists. Gently, he lifted his head to look at his face. The man's features were so swollen as to be unrecognizable. "Can you talk?" Justin whispered. "It's me, Halley." "Solid Snake," the man whispered back through cracked lips. "So they sent you. I'm Gray Fox." The prisoner's voice faltered, and his words became so faint that Halley had to press his ear against the squad leader's lips to hear what he'd say next. "Listen, carefully. We have very little time. The enemy is constructing the final weapon, Metal Gear." "How close are they to having it finished?" demanded Justin. "Very close. Perhaps less than an hour away." Gray Fox's words came slowly and painfully. "Hang on, Gray Fox," urged Solid Snake. "Don't leave me now. I need you. Can you describe Metal Gear? How does it work? Is it large, small?" "No. None of the Snake Men has seen it." "Do you know which building it's in?" "No. It's very well hidden." "You're going to need a map." "A map? What map?" This was the first that Halley had heard about a map to Metal Gear. "Where will I find this map?" he asked intently. The squad leader tried to raise his head, but couldn't. "I don't know. I only know there is one." "What about Dr. Petrovich?" Solid Snake asked. "Have you any clue to where they may be holding him?" Gray Fox shook his head painfully. He could be anywhere. Katafi keeps moving him around." And Ellen, his daughter, is she here too? Yes, Katafi's men kidnapped her in order to make Dr. Petrovich talk. Didn't know that. It was obvious that Gray Fox was fading quickly. He needed a doctor. Hallie felt the urgency of the situation tightening around him. This was the leader of his squad. He couldn't just let him die. He had to rescue Gray Fox. Solid. Snake, listen. Not much time. Can you get us out of here before they come back for us? I'll try, promised Hallie. But with what? His bare hands?